All right. All right, back at it. Whiskey through food, episode 11 or 12, something like that. Let's turn the music down just a little bit here. There we go. Awesome. So I am very excited to be able to be with you this Friday afternoon. What a fantastic Friday. Uh, I'm super excited to be able to pair this delicious cocktail. I've got a doozy of a pairing for you today, so I'm super pumped to be able to bring that to you all. Today, we're going to be talking about Ardbeg Anno. It's one that we've covered before, but the food pairing that we're going to be throwing at this cocktail today is absolutely fantastic. It is key lime pie, one of my absolute favorite pies. Glenmorangie just released a delicious whiskey called Glenmorangie Cake. We've got pie today, so it's all right. They let them eat cake. We got pie. I'm happy about that. So we'll wait, get some more viewers on before we jump into it. Fantastic. Here we go. All right. So as I was mentioning, delicious whiskey Ardbeg Anno. We launched this whiskey in 2017. It is one of the core whiskeys from Ardbeg, one of the core 5 whiskeys. The 5 whiskeys in Ardbeg's core range, the whiskeys that we make year-round every single year, are Ardbeg Wee Beastie, Ardbeg Tinyer, Ardbeg Anno, Ardbeg Ugadal, and last but not least, Ardbeg Koyavrekken. Lots of very fun names, lots of names that are a little hard to pronounce. Maybe that's why bartenders don't drink single malt. Bartenders should be drinking a lot more single malt. I love American whiskeys, but I feel like I can kind of ballpark American whiskey a little bit easier than I can single malt Scotch whiskey. Bourbon whiskeys I know are going to be softened, have notes of, little bit of hewn leather, a little bit of toasted coconut, lots of vanilla, a lot of vanilla. To me, bourbon is absolutely delicious, but the complexity is just not necessarily the same as I see represented in single malt Scotch whiskeys. And that's not even just whiskeys from Ardbeg. I'm a huge fan of whiskeys from all over Scotland, whether it's whiskeys from Campbelltown, whether it's the delicious whiskeys that reside up in the Highlands. Old Pulteney is one of my absolute favorite Scotch whiskey brands, but again, today's show isn't necessarily about them. It's about Ardbeg, and in particular, Ardbeg Anno. So Ardbeg Anno is named after the Mull of O, which is a very, very iconic landmass and kind of a peninsula on Islay. If it wasn't for the Mull of O, Port Ellen would just be battered by these absolutely monstrous sea swells. When you're standing up on the Mull of O, it feels like you're going to be blown off these just massive cliffs, this cliff just drops off straight down into the ocean, and it feels like you're going to be blown off of it because of how fast and violent the winds are kind of swirling around up there. And also up on the Mull of O, there is a very, historic landmark. It's called the American Monument. It was built in 1918, by the American Red Cross. The landmark essentially commemorates the sinking of 2 ships right off the coast of Islay. Both of them were American ships. One of them was actually a ship that was en route from New York City all the way over to Paris, all the way over to France. Sorry, not Paris, all the way over to France. The other one was essentially a steamliner that was headed over to England, and both of them were sunk right off the coast of Islay. Incredibly important landmark that commemorates 2 very tragic incidents that involved 2 American ships, actually, and where we lost a lot of American lives. The people of Islay are the sweetest human beings on the entire planet, so they tried their best to save as many Americans as they possibly could. There were a lot of casualties, though, but they did actually manage to save some lives. Let me go ahead and grab the garnish for this cocktail, and we'll get started. Perfection. Here we are. What's up, Popco? Mr. Popco, of course, joining. I'm going to make sure that our garnish is adequate for our cocktail. That's absolutely delicious. We're going to be garnishing our cocktail today with some sea salt caramel coconut chips. I mentioned that coconut is a dominant flavor in American whiskeys. How does that get there? That toasted coconut, creme brulee, kind of caramel, salted taffy aspect. How does that get imparted into American whiskeys? And quite simply, it's because of the barrels that are being used. American whiskey is absolutely fantastic. Hold no grudge against American whiskeys. But American whiskey, especially bourbon, is handcuffed. It's handcuffed by rules, regulations, and legislations. One of them being that American whiskeys have to be aged in new oak vessels or barrels, right? And so those new oak barrels are going to impart a lot of flavor. A lot of that flavor is going to be developed and derived from a chemical compound or an organic compound that's called lignin, right? So that lignin is essentially a polymer. And when you go to toast an American oak barrel, because remember, they're toasted and then they're charred. So when you toast an American oak barrel or an ABS, American, or an ASB, American Standard Bourbon Barrel, what you're actually doing is you're drawing out a lot of that lignin kind of towards the surface or to the inside of that barrel, then to caramelize it. So that lignin, as it starts to be broken down by that heat, what it's going to impart is it's actually going to leave behind chemical compounds like vanillin, chemical compounds like eugenol as well. Obviously, vanillin is where we get that rich vanilla that we absolutely love when we pick up a delicious dram of something like a wild turkey. Shout out Benny, my man. When we pick up a delicious dram of something like a Maker's Mark as well. Really any American bourbon whiskey, you're going to see a lot of that vanillin. Next, the other chemical compound that I mentioned is called eugenol. So eugenol is essentially like a synthesized clove oil. And that's going to give you all of those nice little kind of prickly, spicy notes that you're going to be able to register in American whiskey. Why is that important when we're talking about single malt Scotch? Well, quite simply because about 90% of the barrels that are used in Scotch whiskey are actually ex-bourbon barrels. After 4 to 8 years, kind of the sweet spot for aging American whiskeys, specifically aging bourbons, what you're going to see is that barrel is still going to have a lot of flavor, a lot of lignin, a lot of tannins, a lot of other congeners to be able to impart into whatever the next occupant of that barrel is. So when we purchase ex-bourbon barrels, we are still not only using them for the qualities of the previous occupant, but also the things that were left behind in that barrel as well. The organic compounds, the congeners that we can still utilize and harness for our own purposes. That is why, whiskeys like Ardbeg 10-year, which is primarily first and second fill ex-bourbon, why it has so much of that soft kind of custardy, vanilla, almost toasted coconut aspect to it. Now, when we move into a whiskey like Ardbeg Anno, it's almost like saying I know, but with a Scottish accent. When we move into a whiskey like Ardbeg Anno, we're using not only first and second fill ex-bourbon barrels, but we're also incorporating a component that is being aged in virgin American oak, right? So that virgin American oak is where we're going to get a lot of the softness, the richness, a lot of the kind of creaminess, the front palate creaminess that this whiskey is going to kind of invade our papilla, our taste buds with. It is an incredibly soft, almost decadent style of whiskey. And that's because of that component that was aged in virgin American oak casks that would have gone to bourbon producers, primarily ones like Woodford Reserve, as we do have an incredible relationship with the Brown-Forman cooperage. Actually, if you walk through the dunnage warehouses at Ardbeg and you look at the barrels, some of the barrels will actually have a kind of this little roundel that essentially says that has BF on it, Brown-Forman, right? So that is one component that goes into Ardbeg Anno. Another component is going to be whiskeys that are wholly aged in Pedro Jimenez sherry cask. So now we're getting to start to talk about some of the richer and kind of more decadent fruity aspects, some of the black currants, some of the dark raspberries, the blackberry as well, the Bing cherry aspects of this whiskey, all of those really nice kind of rich, fruity aspects. So Ardbeg NO to me is kind of like a greatest hits from the distillery. You've got a lot of the ideas from some of the other whiskeys. Some first and second fill ex-bourbon barrel, i.e. in the style of whiskey that would have gone into the 10-year. You've also got some virgin oak. Virgin oak is an idea that we kind of harvest or kind of pick out of another whiskey from Ardbeg, which is Ardbeg Corrievrekken, which utilizes virgin French oak. So now take that same idea, except for instead of virgin French oak, we're using virgin American oak. It also is going to have some sherry cask, right? Huge Ardbeg fans will immediately think Ardbeg Uigeadail when they hear sherry in Ardbeg. For those of us who are largely into cocktails, Wee Beastie also has a component that is aged in sherry casks as well. Oloroso sherry cask for both Wee Beastie and for Ardbeg Uigeadail. But instead of using that Oloroso, now we're talking about Pedro Jimenez sherry cask. Absolutely fantastic. Awesome. What's up, Kevin Canchola, my man? Good to see you. Renee, what's going on? Will Popko's still on here. And Alan, what's up, y'all? Super excited to have you all joining us. Today, we're talking about Ardbeg NO, and of course, it's whiskey through food, so it wouldn't be right if we didn't have a little bit of food. So I guess I should introduce what our food pairing of the day is, and it is the delicious, I'm hoping to God I don't drop this. Let's go ahead and knock on wood there. We're going to be eating a very delicious Boston key lime pie. Absolutely fantastic. I think this is a perfect thing to pair to a whiskey like Ardbeg NO. The creamy, kind of rich aspect of it, the acidity. I'm a huge proponent of seeing Ardbeg with a citrus element. I think that because of our fermentation at Ardbeg, which takes place in all wooden washbacks, we start to develop this beautiful kind of almost lemon lime acidity even before we jump into fermentation, or even before we jump into distillation, excuse me. So from the jump, you see that Ardbeg is a spirit that has duality to it. Yes, the most heavily peated whiskey in regular production, but also one that has an incredible amount of nuance that is driven because of that fermentation in wooden washbacks, and then also because of that purifier that sits on the still at Ardbeg. As that new made spirit starts to rise up through the body of the still, ultimately coming to what we call the swan's neck, because it is kind of like looks like a swan's neck, essentially a very taut part of the still. What's happening is as it goes over the swan's neck, before it can make it into the condensers where it turns back into a liquid from vapor state, what's going to happen is that some of these esters and some of this new made distillate is actually going to be rerouted down into the bottom of the still via this purifier, essentially this little arm that is like kind of has a double U shape, right? Just like that. We'll route that new made spirit back down into the bottom of the still for further rectification. The more copper contact you see with a single malt Scotch whiskey, or really any distillate, the more it touches copper, the more sulfuric compounds that are going to be catalyzed and kind of stick directly to the sides of that still, ultimately being removed from that new made spirit. So Ardbeg again has that duality of, yes, heavily peated, but then actually quite texturally very, very light. You throw that into a wide array of component barrels, and you have a whiskey that is capable of achieving a massive amount of complexity. That is one of the reasons that I love Ardbeg NO. And at 46% alcohol by volume, it is an incredible whiskey, not only to smell, not only to taste, but also to feel as you drink it. The palate application moving left to right with lots of lipids and fats and oils, just incredible. I've talked about it enough. I got to get some of this delicious whiskey into my face already. So let's go ahead and do that. Cheers. Slanjava. Happy Friday. Happy Friday. I don't know if you can hear it, but I got some DaBaby going on in the background here. I decided to start adding some beats into, whiskey through food. It's great being able to hear my fantastic voice, listening to me talk about whiskey, but I'm a person that loves hip hop. I'm a person that loves music in general. So decided to bring a little bit more life to it as well on Fridays, especially. Right? Absolutely fantastic. My first engagement with that whiskey, all of that fruit right up front, the rich kind of textural smoke, really beautiful. The salt, the saline, that beautiful brine. Huge fan of it. Let's go ahead and dive in for a second sip. I'm going to walk you through my tasting routine on this one, right? So whenever I'm engaging with an Ardbeg, or really any whiskey for that matter of fact, because we are visual drinkers, I always assess the coloration and the weight of the whiskey before even bringing it up to my olfactory system or even tasting it for the first time. So on the appearance, Ardbeg Anno has this beautiful, almost like copper-like hue, this tint that sits on top of the auric gold that we know Ardbeg to really have. Ardbeg doesn't really take coloration that well. It is always a very light and almost very pure-looking spirit. Even after aging for in the case of Anno, a range of whiskeys, some of them 4, some of them all the way up to almost 8 years old. Again, this is a non-age statement whiskey, so we don't have to disclose an actual age. It runs a gambit of ages. I believe non-age statement whiskeys are fantastic because it means that we get to make whiskey to flavor profile rather than to an age, right? To a number. It doesn't mean that it means that we're not handcuffed. Right? All right. So, even whiskeys like Ardbeg 10-year. Ardbeg 10-year is this very light kind of hayseed golden color. After 10 years, it's shocking to me that a whiskey could be that light. Another thing that I absolutely love about Ardbeg is that we don't use E150A. No caramel coloring, no spirit caramel coloring added to Ardbeg whiskeys. What you see is what you get. This is what whiskey looks like after aging and engaging in a barrel. All right, next, let's bring it up to our olfactory system, but we're going to do that from a little bit of distance. From down here, I'm already still able to smell all of that citrus, a lot of that heather, that kind of almost like herbal and herbaceous quality, sage. Now I'll bring it up just a little bit closer, and now what I'll do is I'm actually going to blow into the glass, allowing some of those more volatile esters to dissipate. And there it is, mocha, dark chocolate, sea salt again. Rancio notes, kind of like barnyard notes as well, coming from that oxidation from the sherry casks. What a fun dram. Just an incredible whiskey to engage with. All right, let's go ahead and taste it again. It's so soft. It is so unbelievably soft. Creme brulee, toasted coconut for sure. Salted taffy. It's waxy as well. There's a beautiful kind of feel when I drink this whiskey. I'm a huge, huge fan of this. Let's go ahead and dive into our food pairing and see how we did on selecting this key lime pie. Nothing fancy with the spoon here. We're just going to dive right on in. Oh my God. Y'all should be so jealous. It's got this awesome graham cracker crust, which is again going to pair very, very wonderfully, be very reminiscent of the raw ingredient that is used in our Ardbeg, which is of course malted barley. This graham cracker is going to have a very kind of and almost like a hayseed, like not only texture but also aromatic to it. I'm just a huge fan of cereal grain. It's almost like almost cereal notes. That's what we're looking for, cereal notes. Let's go ahead and try it. Perfect. They've used a little bit of salt in it as well. I can taste some of the salinity, the bright pop of that key lime. That's absolutely fantastic. Again, the richness coming from the cream. That's absolutely delicious. Jen Chen, what's up? How you doing, lady? Coming live from the Bay Area. Let's go ahead and try these together now. I'm going to go ahead and say Slanjava, get another spoonful. There's caramel, toffee, sea salt. Again, that beautiful pop of citrus. And again, all of that wonderful kind of rounded, rich cream. This is essentially Ardbeg Anno, just without the smoke and in pie form. So I'm a huge fan of that. Let's go ahead and dive in to the whiskey again. That's absolutely perfect. This is a match made in heaven. Absolute match made in heaven. So let's talk cocktails now. Now that we've nailed this food pairing, I gotta get one more. I gotta get one more of these. I'm a fat kid at heart. I'm so sorry. I detected like a little bit of cream cheese in the cream of this as well. Really, really well done. Shout out Bakery Nouveau, where I actually purchased this from. Huge fan. You know your boy can't bake. I'm a decent cook, horrible baker. But speaking of baking, making cocktails is actually quite like baking. You have to understand recipes and you have to have patience. You have to adhere to the recipes, right? So I'm fantastic at making cocktails. I'm much less patient when it comes to the kitchen. So baking, not necessarily my strong suit, but I know my way around a cocktail bar, especially when that cocktail bar is in my own living room, right? So let's go ahead and try this. We're gonna make a delicious, delicious cocktail today. Today's cocktail is quite simply the key lime sour. We're going to be making a key lime sour with Ardbeg Anno. I'm going to go ahead and take a little bit more of this whiskey, get us some liquid courage. To make our cocktail, we're going to shake Ardbeg Anno with a little bit of freshly squeezed key lime, as well as some Mother Puckin sour. You heard me right, Mother Puckin sour from Elixir Fixer, out of, I believe, Portland, Oregon. Yep, Port Orchard, Washington here. These guys make some incredible syrups. I was able to find them at a local grocery store, just at a QFC. Please, if you are a native of Washington, go out, support local businesses. I was massively surprised when I actually tried this. A great way to incorporate not only a little bit more citrus, but also a wonderful, wonderful kind of sweetness, subtle sweetness into the cocktail. I'll hold this out just so you can see our label there. Fantastic. All right. We're going to back that up with just a little bit of egg white as well. And then we're also going to hit it with 1 dash of orange bitters. Save some. Andrew's telling me to save some key lime pie. I don't know, man. Like, I'm a fat kid. This might be going down a little bit later, right? All right. So all right. There we go. Let's go ahead and make us a delicious cocktail. What we're going to do, we're going to take our jigger, because measuring devices are everything. And we're going to measure out 2 full ounces of Ardbeg Anno. Make it look easy. Super easy. We're going to add into that 1 full ounce of this delicious key lime. My dog is in agreement. I don't know if you could hear her in the background. She fully supported the utilization of this key lime. Key limes are interesting because they are absolutely going to give us the acidity that we need, but they're also going to start to impart not only a little bit of like a white flower aromatic, but also a little bit more levity into the cocktail. I think that key limes are a beautiful way to take a classic ingredient and kind of throw just a little bit of a curveball at it, right? Next, what we're going to do is we're going to take our delicious Elixir Fixer, and we are going to add a 1/2 ounce. Perfect. And because that key lime has just a little bit more sweetness than traditional limes have, I'm going to go just a little bit shorter on the sugar, essentially the balance. If I added 3/4 ounce, there's a chance that this cocktail might run a little bit too far into the sweet side, right? Cocktails, again, are all about balance. You need spirit, you need sugar, you need bitters, and you need water, right? So all 3 of those things should be working in unison and creating one harmonious voice, right? If you use too much of one, you're going to run too far into sweet, or you're going to run too far into bitter, or you're going to run too far into spirit forward, right? So I think that a 1/2 ounce is going to be a perfect balance of spirit, sugar, bitters. And ultimately, when we shake this cocktail, we're also going to get a nice little bit of dilution. All right, so now we're going to add a little bit of egg white. Absolutely perfect there. And I'm going to step off screen here just to grab our little bit of ice. All right, there we are. Perfect. We're just going to add a little bit of ice. Again, not too much ice because this is a sour cocktail. we're going to want to give this cocktail enough air in the shaker to be able to aerate so that we can properly kind of emulsify that fantastic little egg white that's going to do so much of the work for creating body and texture in our cocktail, right? Absolutely imperative that we have that. All right, there we are. And now let's go ahead and shake our fantastic cocktail. Here we go. That's perfect. Nice, delicious, cold cocktail. Whoop. And now what we'll do is we will just make sure that this cocktail finds a fantastic, nice little home. There we are. Perfection. What a perfect looking drink. And I'm just going to hit it with just one little drop of Angostura orange bitters on the top there. Really get those aromatics. And we'll garnish this cocktail with some of these caramel sea salt coconut chips. We'll crush them just a little bit in our hand. And then I'm just gonna put the rest of these directly on top of the key lime. There's already coconut flakes, toasted coconut flakes on top of our key lime pie. Put some more, never hurts. And let's see how we did. All right. Look at the texture of the cocktail. Really beautiful. We've got a great head on the cocktail there as well. Perfect coloration, great wash line as well. We can move this cocktail freely without spilling it. That's always key. Make sure you're aware of your wash lines. Don't overfill your cocktails. Let's go ahead and aromatics. Check the aromatics. Again, that citrus, that acidity, that orange coming from the orange bitters, the beautiful light sweetness of the key limes. Oh man, this smells delicious. I'm gonna go ahead and dive into it. Cheers, Slanjava, happy Friday. A perfect sour, absolutely perfect. Again, the recipe for our key lime sour today, which is supposed to be a essentially liquid form of our key lime pie, is 2 ounces of Ardbeg Anno, 1 full ounce of key lime, freshly squeezed, of course, and then a 1/2 ounce of Mother Pucking Sweet by Elixir Fixer, and a dash of orange bitters directly on top after we have shaken with an egg white. Created all that beautiful acidity, created a little bit of a fantastic kind of sensation and mouthfeel via using an egg white, which acts as an emulsifier. Shaken, topped with just 1 dash of aromatic bitters, except for now that aromatic bitters is actually the orange bitters from Angostura. Fantastic. What's going on, Annette? How are you doing? Slanjava, happy Friday. I'm going to go ahead and give our delicious key lime pie and our key lime sour a little taste here. All right, let's see. Graham cracker crust. Really wonderful. That's going to be reminiscent of the cereals, the cereal grain malted barley that's used in Ardbeg's single malt Scotch whiskey. That's perfect. Really beautiful, bright freshness. I love how Bakery Nouveau has incorporated just a little bit of sea salt into the graham cracker crust. We've got a little bit of this like salinity coming, except for now instead of using actual salt, which we could have done a dash of salt into the cocktail, but I knew that Ardbeg Anno would actually have enough salinity. One of the hallmark kind of trademark flavor profiles of a peated whiskey, not just Ardbeg, but how I identify peated whiskeys is actually by this salted salinity aspect all heavily peated whiskeys from Ardbeg to our friends next door at Lagavulin and Lefroy, to even our friends up at Brooklady and Bamor. They will have trace amounts of salinity that exist in their spirit, and it's a great way to be able to identify a peated whiskey is by kind of looking out for that salinity, that salted aspect. All right, let's try the whiskey as well itself. Immediately, that sea salt, kind of sea brine aspect jumps off the nose. Always make sure that you kind of blow into a glass to dissipate some of those more volatile esters. There's some vegetal aspects to it as well. Bogwort, myrtle, heather as well. There's all that caramel and that toffee. There it is. There it is. I knew you were in there. Once I blew into that glass, some of those more volatile, kind of more ethereal, punchy aspects were able to clear that glass, evacuate that glass, and I could get down into some of those deeper, richer, more lipid kind of aromatics. And now that caramel is just, it's dug in. That caramel is just absolutely dug into the glass there. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. What a way to end my Friday and begin my weekend. As always, whiskey through food, Monday, Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Until Monday, cheers, slanjava, and have a fantastic weekend. I'm off to a great start. I'll see y'all next week.